Welcome back to Aliens and Angels podcast. This is our weekly live question and answer community chat. And today I'm sad to say that my special guest, Philip Kinsella, is unable to make it to the show after all. But the good news is that he will be with us next week. Due to the last minute changes, I've switched the topics with next week's program. And today we're going to discuss quantum physics as we understand it. This was a viewer requested topic. And if you would like to request a topic for a future show, let me know in the live chat or in the comments, and I'll do my best to add it to the programming. Please post your questions and comments during the live chat. You are welcome to join our Facebook group called Aliens and Angels. And all of the links are featured below in the description. So please do check me out, subscribe to my channels, leave me a comment, like my videos, and share my content with your friends. So so another day, a little bit of a disappointment that Philip couldn't make it. But you know what? Sometimes things come up last minute and it's just the way it is. But he has promised to come on the show next Sunday, and I know you'll enjoy him very much. And we're going to talk about what's the difference between aliens and angels. Is there a difference? Or is there not, or just everything to do with that. And we're going to hear a little bit more from Philip about his story, and because he was actually abducted by what we call Greys quite a few years ago, he and his twin brother. And so he has become a public speaker. He's written a number of books, and he's also pursued research and training with in regard to all kinds of paranormal experiences. So please do stay for the program today. I think it'll be quite interesting. And do come back next week and invite your friends. That would be great. And without further ado, we'll just show the intro. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the show for those of you who are here in the live chat, and also those that are watching the replay. I appreciate you very much. And I'm really excited to bring you all kinds of thought-provoking topics. And so today we had a viewer request for a show all about quantum physics. Now, just a disclaimer, I'm not a physicist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a mathematician, and I am in no way an expert on the subject. So we're not really going to look at quantum physics from a scientific perspective. We're just going to look at it from the perspective of how do we understand that it works? What do we understand about the whole phenomenon? And also maybe why is there such a difference between Newtonian physics, which is basically what we've been taught, supplies the rules for our three-dimensional reality, when quantum physics actually tells us quite a different story. So I'll just start with sort of what I know, and I, this is not absolute truth with a capital T. This is just my take on the whole subject. So quantum physics is a study of the physics of the incredibly small, minute, microcosm. It's my understanding that if you take basically the size of an atom and you exponentially times it, that size, by -33 or -35 times smaller, we get to what they call the Planck level. And at the Planck level, that is the point where things switch over from being smaller than the Planck level or the Planck length, um, smaller than that. Everything exists in kind of a soup, an amorphous soup, which is neither particle nor is it waves. It's kind of a mixture of the two, and it seems to be the underpinning of our whole three-dimensional reality. And we'll get a bit more into how that amorphous soup becomes what we perceive as structure in our three-dimensional reality. Now, when we go larger than that, then things appear to be controlled by the laws of Newtonian physics. But I don't think that's actually true. I think the reason things appear to follow those laws is because we believe that those laws exist. We put our faith into it, and then we are co-creating our three-dimensional reality based on Newtonian physics. And since the scientific community and the experts claim that that is the true reality, that's the substance of life, many of us sort of believe in it. And that sort of gives the energy to actually creating that to seem real to all of us. So I know that's quite a bit what I've just said. So just take a deep breath and let's take a look at some of the evidence that we've been shown and how our reality may be actually constructed. So for instance, many of you have heard about the double slit experiment. If you haven't, Google it, do some research into it, and find out what that's all about. Those of you who have seen The Secret, the movie called The Secret, or What the Bleep, those two shows, they get into that a bit, and they also believe that that is sort of the basis for creating our reality. So with the double slit experiment, what they did was they had a machine that shot, I believe it's photons, might be ions. Like I said, I'm not a scientist, but shot them one at a time, and they passed through a single slit to a board that was placed behind the board that had the slit in it. And initially what happened is they expected those photons to go through the slit and to form sort of a bar on the receiving board after they had passed through. But that's not what they found. What they found was an interference pattern. And that indicated that what they were actually, the result they were getting was from waves that passed through the single slit and not physical matter, not particles. So then they repeated the experiment with a double slit, and they did that experiment, and they expected, of course, the photons or the ions, I don't know, I think it's photons that were fired, that went at the double slit, that went through the slits, would land on the board behind and form two parallel bars that matched the slits that they had passed through. And again, they got an interference pattern. And they tried to figure out why were they getting an interference pattern that indicated that these photons were coming across as waves rather than as particles. So they placed a camera. At, I think, just after the board that had the double slits. I'm not sure if it was a wooden board or a metal board. Like I said, I'm not a scientist. You can do more research onto it. But when they placed a camera there so that they could observe what was happening to these waves, which should be particles as they pass through the double slit, surprise, surprise, when they came through the double slits, they actually came across just particles. and they formed two parallel bars on the substrate or on the board or the material that was capturing them on the other side. And they ended up with two parallel slits, as they would have expected. And they went, wait a minute, what's going on here? When we weren't observing it, it was coming across as waves and causing an interference pattern. But when we put the camera there and observed what was happening, the photons or the ions or the atoms, I'm not sure, snapped into becoming particles and gave the observer the result that they were expecting. And this was a huge shock to the whole scientific community. And this was discovered about 100 years ago. And yet it's not well known, and not a lot of progress has been made discovering the secrets of quantum physics since. So then, for a third experiment, what they did is they placed the camera closer to the receiving board that would receive the particles that would form the two parallel bars on the board, for lack of a better word. And this time they discovered something amazing. They not only found that the photons that came through the slits actually became particles, but they also noticed that these particles had some kind of consciousness and control over time and space, so that it actually went back to the point where even before it was observed, when it came out of the machine that produced them, it changed them all to particles, and they were at no time waves. And this had huge ramifications and made a huge statement in the scientific community, because basically what it says and proves is that all particles of everything that's in our imaginable and so-called tangible reality has consciousness. So, it's been argued for some time. Well, it's accepted that people have consciousness. There's been some debate over whether animals have consciousness. I think today most people would realize that animals are sentient. They're aware of themselves, and they have the ability to express, to basically deal with the available data that they take in as conscious beings. But now we're understanding that everything that we consider real or artificial, like for instance, the camera that's recording myself at this time, the microphone that's gathering my vocals right now, everything has consciousness, everything. So even if it's man-made, it's made up of things that have consciousness. And this pretty much blew everybody away. And of course, the powers that be don't want us to understand this, because we literally can be and already are creator beings, creating with source to create our collective and individual realities. So that's really, really quite something. Further, more studies have determined that what happens is when we perceive something, could be an action or a physical thing, and we sort of label it or perceive it to be something that we expect, the amorphous state from the subplank level that we talked about earlier actually forms what they call standing scalar waves, and those waves actually produce the illusion of three-dimensional matter. So that's quite interesting too. And so going back, it means that we can change the past by viewing things differently. And I'll tell you where this has been especially helpful in my own life is with dealing with intergenerational dysfunction, and also dealing with what they call karma, which is a spiritual concept, as well as childhood trauma. And so that means that we can go through the process of dealing with our stuff here and now and processing it so that we can see it differently. That might involve, as far as intergenerational dysfunction, it might be seeing different ways that we could be interacting with family and other people, ways that we can interact with ourselves that are much healthier patterns, much healthier ways of doing things. And that, in effect, also goes back and changes the past because that pattern dissolves and is no longer a real thing. So and that sort of bleeds over into the whole concept of karma. So, generation after generation, a lot of the same mistakes were made. Not everybody has had the advantage of upbringing and life, and maybe even the other things that they need in life um, to have a healthy outcome. But we can actually go back and erase those patterns, and that in effect also erases the karma that we bear the burden of bearing today. And then one other thing about it is childhood trauma. So when I got to the point where I was able to say and to see clearly that perhaps the way I remembered the past was not the whole story, that let in room for me to have compassion for people that I had previously thought were victimizers. It gave me the ability to see that perhaps they were just dealing with their own intergenerational dysfunction. Perhaps they had things that were causing them terrible grief in their lives. And I had a bit of compassion for those people. And then in turn, it helped me to soften my story or look at my story from a broader perspective. And what that did was allowed me to change how I viewed the past, which at that point, as we know from the double slit experiment, actually the energy from that goes back and changes right to the source. So that's pretty mind blowing. And this is the practical way that we can use our newfound understanding of quantum physics. Oh, we've been joined by Don in the chat. He said, Don Rogers at March 4th Production says, hey, Karen, we are here. Even on a molecular level, which referring to a sperm and an egg, we are made, I'm going to read that again. And I'm reading these so that those of you on audio will benefit from the conversation. Don says, even on a molecular level, sperm and egg are made of those sentient atoms. So even before gestations, we start in a single intelligent atoms seeking like energies. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the more we sort of grasp the basics that I've already discussed, and we start to apply that to all aspects of our life. Like, for instance, when I reach out and touch my hat, I'm not really touching my hat. And my hat isn't even really my hat. What's happening is there are layers of energetic information that correspond and react with each other, giving me the sensation that I'm reaching out and touching my hat. My eyes tell me I'm wearing a hat. I can feel my hat. And so I believe I'm wearing a hat. But in reality, we are all just energy, and the hat is being perceived by my brain. So our brains take in information from the field around us and interpret it and create a holographic image, which we call reality, what we think is real. So the beauty of all of this is it means we can change reality. We have the power. And there's not just a personal reality, there's also a collective reality. And now I'm just going to touch on politics. I am not in any way endorsing one party over another. or one way of doing politics over another. That's not my point here. I'm just using it as a point of illustration. So when we're taught that there are basically only two parties which have a structure that they follow on how they want to govern a country, then we believe in that and we give it our power and we give it our creative power. And then we create the holographic image within our minds of there only being two parties. But in reality, there are infinite number of ways of governing a country. There are infinite ways of perceiving how politics could actually roll out. But when we're only focused on two and we believe there's only two, guess what? For all intents and purposes, there's only two. But we could have things quite different. So I think it starts with working on the self, dealing with intergenerational dysfunction and childhood and past traumas for sure, but dealing with our health, because I believe our bodies are the temple body, which holds the frequency and allows us to be in tune with higher information and understanding and all kinds of things. So I believe that taking good care of the body is a really big part in being able to hold the frequencies and also to be able to understand and wield this amazing power that we all have. And we could start looking at things quite differently. The other thing is we're very heavily influenced by the media. And so the media is constantly bombarding us with information. And we, over years of time, I mean, television hasn't been around that long. I was born in the 1950s, and it was in the early 1970s that we got our first color TV. My mom actually won it from the church auction, and we were the first people on our block to have a color TV. And pretty much everybody else had black and white TVs, but TV has not been around for that long. But the media has always had a tremendous influence on what we perceive as real and what we think is going on in the world. Previous to that, it was newspapers and, of course, the radio, and then eventually television. And now, if we have ears to listen and eyes to see, we understand that the media is actually an entertainment information and propaganda machine. And so there have been several court cases in the last 10 years where the outcomes of the court cases are that the media is entertainment. It's not meant to be taken literally. And yet we constantly feed on that information and it influences how we see reality. And what's happened is, in my opinion, society has taken a huge turn for the worst in the last 50, 60 years. Things just become ever more complicated, more confusing. There's more division. There's certainly a lot of violence in this world, whether it's war or crime or domestic violence. Oh my gosh, there's no end to it all. And yet, we keep feeding on the mainstream and alternative news sources, believing and letting them shape the energy that we're putting into creating the world we live in. And the truth of the matter is that when enough people believe it, it becomes so. So by using the media as a useful propaganda machine, we're actually creating all the things that we don't want and that we don't want in our society. And so we need to spend more time creating our own reality that's positive and vibrant and healthy. And in that way, we come together and we start to form a collective reality which changes everything on planet Earth. Don Rogers at March 4th Production says, Canadian Spinja brought to my attention about being creator beings on autopilot. Absolutely, I totally agree with you. So yeah, Canadian Spinja, you are a smart noodle. I think you're a lot more intelligent than you give yourself credit for, because the stuff that you perceive and the information that you share on your show, on Dawn's show, on my shows is absolutely profound. And I want to thank you for your input and for being brave enough to express yourself. Because in the beginning, we don't have a lot of confidence. We've been beaten down in dysfunctional families, dysfunctional societies, and we're taught that we don't have any power, we're not very smart. Because if we were smart, we'd be rich, right? That's what we're told. But that's not true at all. The system is stacked to give the power to only a few. So just getting back to what I was saying before, we have the power to create. So what we can be doing is spending time every day thinking about what we want that's beautiful and positive in our lives, and in turn, what we want to see on a peaceful paradise earth. We can create that. We absolutely can, when enough of us start to do this. But it involves turning off the input and the data that's constantly whipping us into a state of fear and frenzy, and realizing there's really only two things in this world. There's love and there is fear. And fear doesn't make us feel good, and love makes us feel fantastic. And when I'm talking about love, I'm not just talking about romantic love. I'm talking about love in the much larger perspective that can change everything. It's a powerful, powerful force. And that love includes kindness, mildness, self-control, patience, and a whole bunch of other attributes that spin off of the love vibration. And it's the most powerful vibration we have. So when we start to spend more and more time in the love harmonic, we become more powerful and more powerful. Now, recently I started a series on my other show called the Quantum Guide Show, which is about the simulation. But more than simulation theory, it's about how to harness the simulation and bring about more of what we all want to see in our reality, both private and collective. So I encourage you to subscribe if you haven't to my channels, and tune in and watch the different videos so that you can gain all that information. I was also recently had a wonderful experience of being on a Forbidden Knowledge News with Chris Matthew special, and along with myself, I was accompanied by Canadian Spinja and Don Rogers at March 4th Productions, also Stephen from BG Cast, myself, and Jennifer Halcame, and we discussed manifesting. And so that really closely ties into quantum physics. And like most people, I started having my eyes open to this potential when I saw the movie called The Secret. And then later on, I watched the movie called What the Bleep. And then I started investigating Abraham Hicks, and many people have followed this similar path. And so we keep being told that we're always attracting towards us what we want and what we don't want. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more. But first, what I would like to do now is just do a quick promotion. It's only 2 minutes long, so that you can become aware of some of the ways that you can help support my channels and the work that I do. Hi guys, break time for a short message. YouTube will not monetize me, so if you enjoy my content and want to support my efforts, help me to cover my expenses by visiting my shop to buy yourself a beautiful orgone generator. Zendome's Orgonite are my unique brand, and they are ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. They are only available through my website, www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. KarenHolton.com. Many people are finding comfort with Zendome's orgone generators, commonly called orgonite. They are a simple compound which balance ambient energy by converting negative energy and EMF into positive healing energy with many easily confirmed health benefits. They are a simple compound with alchemic and energetic properties. These devices function as self-driven, continuously operating, highly efficient, negative to positive energy transmutation factories. They help diminish the harmful effects of electromagnetic frequency radiation by attracting and converting negative energies, retuning them into new and more healthful sound and light wave patterns. And they help to purify the atmosphere and accelerate plant growth. They also help stimulate positive mood and are a natural remedy for poor sleep patterns. When orgonite is within range of any corded or wireless electronic device, it will efficiently and continuously transform that energy into orgone as it is being transmitted. This essentially creates orgone energy transmitters out of any and all emitters of harmful negative energy. You can use these devices for focusing the mind, healing, meditation, and for spiritual growth. Zendome's orgonite are my unique brand of orgone generators, and they are only available through my website. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out my website to see my latest selection at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. Check them out today. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, we're back. So, we've talked about quantum physics from the double slit experiment, and that is mostly what I understand. There's other aspects to it, like, for instance, there is particle duality, or, if you have two objects and you send one and they're linked and you send one of them out into deep space, whatever happens to one object also happens to the other. And that's very interesting too. And I also believe that we have the power to quantumly entangle objects. And I'm just going to say hi to John here. Hi, John. Nice to see you. Hugs, and thank you for joining us. That's lovely. So I do a process called quantum entanglement with my orgone generators. So what I've started to do from the very beginning is I took the very first orgone generators I ever had, and I do a process with them. So I clean them, and then I expose them to sunlight, which charges up the crystals. I expose them to high frequency music. I smudge them, and I imbue them with the power to be connected to each other. Now, you might say, well, I don't know about that because, as far as I'm concerned, you're just using your imagination. But the truth of the matter is, we're actually, because I envision it and I have intention, I'm actually linking all of my orgone generators. So then I would give some away and I would sell some and I would get some new orgone generators, and I would repeat the process each time, always keeping some of my orgone generators that I had already done this practice with, so that all of my orgone generators and all of my crystals that I've ever had, that I have now, or that I have in the future, will all be energetically linked and imbued with the intention and very high frequency and love energy. And as they go out into the world, they're forming a grid of love energy, healing, and positive vibration everywhere between them. So that's another thing that some people don't really realize, that we have the ability to do. And so that's another part of quantum physics that we've been taught is a reality. Einstein called it spooky qualities. He couldn't explain it. He didn't have the physics or the math to explain it, but he well recognized that it was a phenomenon that was very real. So we can, with confidence, change our physical 3D reality. I've done it many times myself. On my friends, some are here in the chat today, like Don Rogers and Canadian Spinja and myself. We have actively been changing our reality, our health, our material circumstances, all kinds of things by using the process of our creative ability, which involves a number of steps. And I'll just sort of briefly go over them as I understand them. The first thing to do is to clearly in your mind create within your imagination a two or even could appear to be three-dimensional reality of the outcome that we desire. The next thing we do is we can either write out or draw what it is we want to bring into our reality. And as we do that, we're clarifying and adding substance to what we want in life. And then there are things like prayer, ritual, all kinds of ways that we can then strengthen and start sending sort of that vibration of acceptance out into the world and indeed out into the universe. And as we do so, we also take steps to align ourselves with that goal. Some people call it working towards your goal. People like Jason Brashears from the Archaics channel, he says that we need to align ourselves and take steps towards achieving that goal. And that lets the simulation know that we definitely want that to come into our lives. So we want to work towards it. And then we also need to have a spirit of accepting, allowing that outcome to happen within our lives. And this can happen by raising our self-esteem, believing that we're worthy of the outcome, believing that we're capable of receiving that outcome, and allowing that outcome to actually happen in our lives. So those are the basic steps that I have taken that have worked ever so wonderfully for me. I have a life I never dreamed possible. Well, I guess I did dream it because I always wanted it. I had the desire for it, and I did take steps to allow it to happen. And I have, an amazing place to live with some privacy and some space and a lovely backyard and lots of sun. And I'm in a safe neighborhood. I have a measure of health I always wanted because I got things I want to do and places I want to go and people I want to see. And all of this is possible from my limited understanding of quantum physics. And I think I'm going to actually take it one step farther. So Don Rogers at March 4th Productions, he and I have gotten to know each other fairly well. And we both have transdimensional experiences. Don's are a little different than mine. His pertain to the secret space program, and mine also involve extraterrestrial experiences. And so I always thought, well, in the beginning when I was having them, I thought I was dreaming. And then later on, I kind of thought I might be crazy. I was worried about that. But then finally, I realized, no, what I'm experiencing. This is true and real for me, even though I don't understand how it's happening. Much later on, I did research on simulation theory. And then I did some research and stumbled upon the Gateway program. And for those of you who are familiar with the Monroe Institute, They use the ideas and the principles from the Gateway program to teach people how to basically exit this three-dimensional reality and enter a place, I'm going to call it a place, a state of awareness that's outside of time and space. And in that place, we're able to manifest anything we want. And it's really an interesting reality. Now, for those of you who are skeptical, do some research on the Gateway Project, do some research on the Monroe Institute, and actually, even the CIA there's declassified information where they talk about how this is entirely possible. So the way I understand how it works is everything is these oscillating frequencies. And what we perceive as reality, and when we think, we are producing these oscillating frequencies. But when we're in specific states of consciousness where we're in a deep state of relaxation, this can be just from meditating, this could be while we were asleep, this could be while we're under regression hypnosis. But this can be also while we're under the influence of psychedelics. Not that I'm not recommending them, I'm just stating how I perceive all of this to work. And what happens is we actually are then able to sort of bleep out of the three-dimensional reality and into other realities. Now, remember at the very beginning of this program, I talked about how the observer views and understands something to be. The particles will then obey our perceptions and become that which we are perceiving. And they not only do that in real time, they go back through time and space and change it outside of the time-space continuum so that it looks like it has always been that way. So when Dawn and I have our amazing transdimensional experiences, we are outside of time and space, and we're perceiving in that, I don't know what you want to call it, soup, alternative reality, a place that's outside of time and space. What we perceive as goings on, happening to us, happening around us, actually becomes real in that realm. So that is pretty interesting because it literally means we can change dimensional realities. And I want to just speak briefly about a vision I had that helped me to really understand how other dimensional realities exist along with our three-dimensional realities. So in this vision, I was in a huge house with many hallways and many rooms and many doors. And I was aware that there were other people who were somehow looking for me, and they were not that far behind me. And I kept traveling or walking, I should say, or hurriedly and quietly walking from room to room, down hallway to hallway, and going through doors because I didn't want them to find me. I don't know why, it was just how it was laid out for me. And eventually I discovered a hidden sort of a portal or a doorway in a wall, and I opened it and found stairs going up. I didn't even know there was a floor above me. So I closed it so that I wouldn't be found. I went up the stairs and I found out that I was in a whole different reality. I could see down through the floor, or as it would be perceived as the ceiling, to the beings or people that were looking for me below, but they couldn't see me. And there was no corridors, no doors, no hallways, no rooms. It was just open space. And as I went around in this space, I realized I could perceive of everything going on in the three-dimensional, but they could not perceive where I was and what I was experiencing. I also discovered that there were no actual portals to other places. I could go to other planets, other worlds, other realities from this top floor position without having to go through any kind of barriers or transportation or anything like that. And it was amazing. And I got a greater understanding of what it's like to go to a higher dimensional reality. Just going to put up Don Rogers at March 4th Production says, parallel real-time existence. Absolutely, parallel real-time existence. So we not only have parallel real-time existences that we perceive as being very three-dimensional, and then remember, we don't really experience anything as being solid. It's all data that we take in, electronic data that's taken in by our senses, and our brains are what create the holographic image of the reality that we're aware of in our real-time existence. And when we're in outside of time and space, as I've been speaking about, there seems to be fewer laws for sure, and fewer restrictions, and more freedom, and greatly enhances our creative potential when we're there. And I also believe that when we come back, we are able to sort of have strings attached that keep sort of anchor in what we create outside of time and space. And our show is rapidly coming to an end, but before we end, I want to tell you about another vision I had, which was super interesting. And this was a vision that I had while I was doing research into simulation theory. So I was basically being shown by interdimensional beings that what we perceive as absolute truth and real here on a three-dimensional realm is actually just a created overlay. And so I was shown different scenarios of goings on that we perceive as being real here on Earth. And they had the technology to sort of shut the simulation down and show me that there was actually nothing there. And in particular, I was shown some of my past earlier life traumas that were terrifying for me, even though I had dealt with that stuff and, felt that I had moved on from it and definitely have a different existence now. And as I was perceiving these experiences, it was like I was watching them on a screen or having them sort of play out in front of me as though they were happening again. I was also shown some even more extreme things that traumatize and hurt humans and animals here on Earth. And then the beings showed me that they could simply turn off the simulation and all of that just disappeared. It didn't exist. It wasn't real. And that really helped me a lot. Now, I know we can't run around creating our own three-dimensional rules. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. If we step out in traffic, likely we could be hit by a car, seriously injured, even die. If we jump off a cliff and we believe we can fly, well, probably that's not going to work out too well. We're probably going to crash to the bottom, become severely injured, and possibly even die. So there are limits within the three-dimensional reality. However, when we become trans-dimensional or interdimensional, we are no longer covered by those limits. So much the way Neo in the show called The Matrix, at the end of the first Matrix movie, he could just fly and he could put the Matrix, which is the false construct that overlays the sort of true simulation we also live in, he could put it on notice and say, hey, we've found a way out, we've escaped this, and we're changing things, and we can do that too. So I'm hoping that this has been encouraging to you. It's kind of a shame that the person who requested that we do this show on quantum physics didn't actually make it to the live. But, things happen and things come up. So I'm hoping he catches us on the replay. But this is all wonderful fuel for thought. And it does tie in to aliens and angels. It gives more credibility to those of us who have had um, alien contact or angelic contact. Now, I've done shows in the previous couple of weeks. Please do go back and watch the replays if you haven't seen them, on how a lot of the really scary abduction scenarios seem to have something to do with being human generated. Again, to cause fear, to mislead us, and to keep us from coming into our full power and our full potential. So do check those out. So I'm not going to get into that today. But there are many, many, many more positive angelic and ET contact experiences, much more common than the negative and the scary abduction scenarios that some people have talked about. And so I think that all of this gives us huge, huge a field of thought, ways of looking at reality differently. And, a lot of people are angry. They're angry because we've been misled and we've been confined and we've been programmed to be so much less than what we are. And I strongly suggest you use that anger to give you the energy to pivot and make a shift and make a commitment to yourself that you're going to start creating more and more wonderful reality for yourself. And so for myself, it means putting down my cell phone more often, not checking it for notifications and things too often, limiting my exposure to alternative news. And I already don't participate at all in mainstream news. I can't stomach it, to be honest with you. And not taking too seriously what I see in the alternative news and not watching too much of it and spending more time following podcasts and experiences of people who have had amazing, wonderful experiences changing their reality. We're very much influenced by the company that we keep. And I highly recommend, if you don't have neighbors and friends nearby in your physical dimension, I should say physical, neighborhoods or cities or, that you can hang out with, certainly find them online. There are so many people who are experiencing these things for themselves and are really enjoying being alive. We don't have to live in fear. We can live in love and creativity. And the more we experience and validate that for ourselves and validate it for each other, the more wonderful experiences we have. And life just gets better and better and better. And what a wonderful way to fight back and to change things. And we can change our lives. We can change this reality. And quantum physics has taught us that. And it's been known for 100 years. But are kids being taught this in school? Are we being taught this in the churches and synagogues and mosques? Are we being taught this by government leaders? I think not. In fact, we get made fun of and we get marginalized even in the common social reality if we even bring these subjects up. So take your courage, use your anger to give you the energy to make some really, really positive changes in your life. And I hope you do. And join us. It's a pretty cool reality once you understand these things. So we've got another note from Don Rogers. He wanted me to remind everybody before I sign off today about our upcoming barbecue in central Alberta, Canada. If you think you will be in the central Alberta area sometime around the end of August, I'll give you lots of weeks notice when we're going to have it. We're going to have a barbecue. If it's very small, right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 people who are interested. We'll probably just hold it in my backyard, but if we get a larger crowd, we'll probably do it at a public park. And we'll do a barbecue and we'll do some fun stuff. We'll make tinfoil hats. I'm proud to be a tinfoil hat wearer. and well, it'll be great. So please email Don Rogers or Canadian Spinja or myself, and let us know you're interested, and we would be happy to include you in that. So I have a few other announcements. As I mentioned, Philip Kinsella could not come today last minute. He had something come up that was unavoidable, and so we've got him scheduled for next week, July the 7th. So do join us at 11 a.m. Pacific, noon Mountain Time, or 2 o'clock in the afternoon if you're Eastern Time, and invite your friends. I want to let you know that this week, coming up on Wednesday on the Quantum Guide Show, episode 174, my guests are Frank Castle and Elsa Dillon. Both are definitely, I don't know what you want to call it, but they both had all kinds of extraterrestrial contact. And we're going to talk about cats. We're talking about our pet cats and how they are interdimensional beings and all the spooky, weird, and cool stuff about cats. So if you're interested in ET contact, spirituality, Frank Castle, Elsa Dillon, or even just crazy about cats, join us on Wednesday. I think we're going to do a pre-record, so probably the show will not be live. It will come out sometime around the early evening. So do catch it. And one other thing I want to tell you about is my upcoming giveaways. I'm going to wait until we have more people in the live chat, and then we're going to do a contest, and we're going to do a giveaway. And some of the things I'm going to give away are some of my beautiful orgone generators. This is a small one. This particular one has a beautiful clear crystal point wrapped in copper, and it's peridot. You can't really see the color is green. And I've had stickers made, and here's an example of one of the stickers. This is for the Aliens and Angels podcast, and it's got a little QR code so you can find out about all the resources that I offer. I'm also going to include in that giveaway a beautiful handmade crocheted piece done by Canadian Spinja, and she puts positive intention and high frequency energy into everything she makes. And Don Johnson says Ray will be in the audience for the cat episode. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So I'm starting to have some repeat guests, and we're going to talk about some things that are a little bit, outside of the box and more fun. And I just really encourage everyone to subscribe and like my videos, help me grow my channel. And it would be really, really awesome if you could help to support my work. And it's going to change to my other banner here. Please be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, comment, and share this out with your friends and encourage them to join us. And please do join the Aliens and Angels group on Facebook. So the live giveaway that we'll be doing, the free giveaway that we'll be doing, will be for people who are members of the Alien and Angels Facebook group. So join if you haven't done so already, and enjoy all the amazing content there. And people who come to the lives and participate in the chat. So those are sort of the two qualifying things that need to happen for you to be eligible to participate in the free giveaway contest. So that's about it for announcements. I'm just going to check comments, see if there's any new ones. No, but please, everybody, be most excellent to each other. Love each other. Fall in love with life. Do some research on quantum physics and find out how amazing life can be. So that's it for the show for today. I want to thank everybody for joining us, whether you're live or on the replay, and we'll see you next week on Aliens and Angels. Oops, I'm looking for my outro. Here it is. Thank you for joining me for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels. at Karen Holton TV, click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will also find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton on all audio platforms. A very special thank you to Andy Gambino and Anthony Exemplar from the Unidentified S4 channel for creating the beautiful introduction for this podcast. Until next time, keep up the good work.